Hello, this is Lavinia at Cross Keys Crafts. The other day, one of our guests asked me if I had any anniversary cards in my stash that I was happy to sell. And I only had one in my stash. It was actually featured in my very first video on this channel. It was a shaker card. So although I don't sell my cards anymore, I thought it would be quite handy to have a few anniversary cards in my stash because I also might want to give one away myself. So I had a thought about what materials I should use, and I thought this again would be a good idea to use my Lavinia stamps. Funnily enough, just in the post arrived half an hour ago, some of my new stamps. I have bought here Bumble and Hum, the two bumblebees. And the idea for me is to stamp animal couples that face each other. So this is perfect for this. I have also chosen these two hares. I could have that one and that one. Doesn't really matter. I might actually do that. I quite like this one because the ears are slightly different. Then I've got the birds here from the bird collection. I could either choose these two or these two. That depends on the size of my image. And I've also got the two hedgehogs here, although they are fairly big, but I think they would work as well. I've also got the single heart mini and the hearts mini stamps. I think they would be good to add to these stamps. And then I decided to create small cards, so I have cut some card bases from A4 card. This is my usual 300 GSM. And I have cut these to 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 to fit onto a 6x4 card or 4 by 5 7/8. So I'll have a look what I do afterwards. And I have chosen a few nesting dies. Basically, my idea is I have been inspired by Natalie at NB Cards. She does lots of clean and simple cards, so it's not an exact copy of something she has created, but it's inspired by something. So I would just like to create toppers with these stamped images. So I have chosen a heart. This is like a scalloped circle, but it leaves little gaps. It looks a bit like a doily. I have got an oval scalloped again, and I've got this sort of ticket die. It doesn't really matter. Heart is the obvious choice, obviously, but I didn't want them all to look the same. And then to get some texture onto these cards, because I would like to keep them white on white, I have found this heart die. So that cuts out lots of little hearts and dots. There's one I need to poke through. But I've also got a few embossing folders. I've got two heart embossing folders. This one is a full panel. I don't know if the camera picks it up. And this one actually leaves a circle in the middle. The only problem I have with these, in my head, I've got landscape cards. So I'm not quite sure yet whether I will use these. And then I've also got this sort of swirly pattern. I think that would look nice. Anything that gives sort of a bit of texture and is fairly detailed in the respect that if I only emboss a little panel, I still want to be able to make out what the pattern is. And then I've got lots of scrap cards. These are mostly cut-offs from when I create my card bases. I've also got two ovals. I think this is from when I created some shaker cards. I might need a bit more card later for these bits here, but I'll find out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one shape each of these because I worked out which stamps fit on these. And yeah, I think I will already stamp these images in my stamping platform. I don't think you need to see me do that. As usual, I just place them on these die cuts and stamp them in my stamping platform in VersaFine Onyx Black. With regards to the stamping, I want to show you two things. When I inked up the hedgehog stamps, I had a little bit of residue here on the back, on the actual silicone on the background. Ignore this, I just didn't put enough pressure on there. And I thought, well, Jo Rice always wipes this away when she's got that. But hey, I thought I would be cutting corners, and obviously it showed on the stamp. So never mind, I'll had to cut this again, and then got a much better result. I actually caught the stamp again at that place, but this time wiped it, so the result is definitely better. But with the bumblebees here, I would like these two to sit really closely together, because all of the stamps have got the the polymer background here. I can't really push them as close together as the images can be. So I'm stamping these individually, the big one first, and when I've stamped that, I can place the other one down and stamp that one. But because these are new stamps and I haven't used them yet, rather than stamping directly on this, I'm going to stamp on some scrap paper. I have aligned this properly. I don't want to take this off, but I can just place a little piece of cardboard here on the top, or I could, when I've inked up the stamp on this side, I could just take an imprint of that. It doesn't really matter, but I thought I'd just show you that quickly. Sometimes there is a residue from the production on these stamps. Usually it's not so much of a problem with Lavinia stamps, but it can happen and they can sort of bleed a little bit. So it's worth doing that to prime them, or you can rub them against your skin. But I recently got into the habit of just stamping them off once. Yeah, it's fairly crisp, but I'm sure I'll get a better image the next time round. But oh, I'm in love with these. These are so gorgeous. I've seen obviously other crafters use them on YouTube and Facebook, and these are just adorable. I think they'll probably be my favourite Lavinia stamps ever, and you will see lots of them soon. So I'm just giving that a gentle pressure, and that's done perfectly. So I now can align the other one really closely, closer than I could if I had placed both of them down. So I quickly stamp that off as well, and then I'll show you how we continue. So I've stamped my 4 images. This one, by the way, I stamped in the Twilight, which is a dark blue. This one is a mix of black and the pine cone, because I thought the black would be a bit too harsh. That's the standard black, and that's the standard black. And I might colour these in with my coloured crayons, with my wax crayons. I'm not quite sure yet what I do with it. I'm not stamping the little hearts yet until I've decided on the colour scheme of these cards. They will be mostly white, but I might add a few colours. So for the background or for the strips I want to add, I thought I'll have a variety of options. So I'm going to die cut this hard die here from this one panel. I'm going to use this embossing folder with the hearts to create a top folding card. I think that would be nice. And then I'm going to take some of these strips and I'm going to emboss those. I have to check whether I need to find a longer embossing folder if I want a landscape card, or whether I make them top folding. I think something like this would lend itself to actually have a landscape card, because it might be a bit too wide, but I'll have a think about this. I want to show you a few variations of what you can do. So I'll have a think off camera. I don't actually have a lot of time left, so I quickly make my mind up and continue with this. I just wanted to show you this. If you have got an embossing folder with a continuous pattern and you have just embossed it like this, you can then push it through the area here. Let me just make sure where I've embossed it. I might be able to see the pattern here and then continue the pattern here. I can actually see where the pattern needs to be continued. By the way, I've misted my piece of cardstock as well, so I can see where this pattern stopped, and then don't know if the camera picks up, and where this one would continue. So ideally you choose an area in the middle where your embossing folder is potentially open. This one is, so this would work with it. And I try only to put it through until here so I don't flatten this area out again. So the idea was okay, but it actually flattened the area a little bit here, I think where some pressure from the plates. It doesn't matter, because this can be the area that we cover with the topper anyway, so you can do it in 2 bits. I've also got some squashed areas here, but I think the paper is just too wet. I tried to mist it, so I will cut this to size anyway. I don't even think this is an even strip, so I'll come back when I've finished that. So I've had a little play and I have decided on all of my layouts. So for this strip, I thought rather than finding an embossing folder, I just used my scoreboard and I scored it like this, but I think I like the raised lines here better. So, and I thought I'd go with this one here with the hedgehogs. I just want to show you different options. So I thought, and I said that earlier, that this lends itself to a landscape card, and I think that's nice. I just wanted to keep it really simple, but I could obviously have it going that way. Well, I could keep the strip like this and have the, sorry, going off camera then, get that out of the way. So, and have this facing that way, but I think it's a little bit too wide, so I keep this as a landscape card. For the hairs though, I will go for the idea of having that as a portrait card. So I'm going to put the strip down here. This, by the way, I didn't tell you, this one's just over 1.5 inches, and I think this is just 1 inch wide. I cut these down just as I fancied it. So, and I'm going to place these down before I cut them to length so I can see where I've got the joint here. So yeah, I want this a bit offset, I think. With this one, I also thought I will, once I found the sentiment I'm looking for, I will just stamp it across here. I think that would be quite nice as well. And I also thought with this one, because the texture is really nice, to introduce some colour. So I'll show you in a moment how to ink blend over this, just to give it a hint that I then can pick up in the hard stamp. With the bees, again, little change of mind, but only because it didn't quite work out. I didn't have enough pressure to cut through all of these, so they are still nicely stuck in here. So what I will do is I will put some clear tape on the back to keep all the pieces in, and then I will use it like this. So they're basically sort of cut out but haven't come out. And I thought these work really nicely with the bees, because it looks a bit like the bees have made this pattern, and I think this will just sit very nicely on here. And if I find a sentiment that I can curve, I can just curve that on the edge here. And with this one here, I had a change of mind with regards to the embossing folder, because the other one, where have I put them? Never mind. The other one, although it was the same size, the pattern wasn't as high. So I went for this one instead. So this one can hold this one quite nicely. But I need a space for the sentiment. And the obvious reason would be to just put something at the bottom here. But I thought, wouldn't it be fancy if I just had a strip going right across here? I can sit this one on top and then have maybe happy anniversary there. I think this would make something different. It looks a bit, I think, like a wrapped present or so. So I think that's quite a nice idea. So I'm preparing these card bases quite quickly. I'll just show you that technique in a second, and then I glue these all together. For this strip of cardstock, all I want to do is just add a hint of colour, and I'm using the Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide. It's one of the few pinks I do own. So I'm just testing, and I'm really giving it just a very light application. I really just want to catch the edges of that embossed pattern. So I'm going around in swirling motions, but really just applying very light pressure. I don't want to go in between basically onto the background of that embossed pattern. What I can do is go around the edges a little bit, because they are catching anyway, so I might just as well make that even. But once I've cut it down and decided on the size, I would have to go in the edges again. So if I just show you that, it's cut a little bit more there, but otherwise it's just really just a hint of colour. I want to show you one more thing before I have to do something else. I'm a bit late for me cleaning the pub. So with this here, with a strip, I want to stamp happy anniversary on this. I'm just contemplating whether that is actually a straight one. It looks a bit wonky at the moment, but anyway, I'm going to just mark where this card ends here. Oops. Where the circle is and where this corner is. I actually want to keep it at a proper angle here. So because I want to just stamp in that area, but I want to stamp this before I place this down, because obviously I've got embossed pattern here at the bottom, so I would not be able to stamp on this after I've glued it down. So it's about 10 hours later. I had to abandon my crafting earlier, and when I came back now to my craft table, I decided not to film every individual step, because some of this is so easy that it's easy for me to just explain what I have done. I have stamped sentiments on all 4 cards. It wasn't the sentiments I was looking for. I couldn't really find the one that I wanted or thought I had. I might have to update my stash a little bit as well. So I found this one here, the happy anniversary, wishing a perfect couple a perfect day. I stamped this twice. On this one here, I bended it a little bit on my acrylic block so that it could follow this curve a little bit. Especially with silicone stamps, it's easy to do that. With this one, I kept it straight. Because I knew this topper would be really big, I stamped it there in the top left corner, and I think that's really nice. The other anniversary stamp I found was this one here, and I think it came with this happy die, so it's a different script, but I thought it worked as well. And I have chosen different colours. This one here I stamped in pink, these 2 are the red ones, and this one I stamped one in blue, and I think they're all VersaFine Clair inks. And I have stamped the hearts on the matching images in the according colour. So red hearts here, and then the blue and the pink hearts here respectively. Where I had a lot of space, I went for the heart group, and where I could have had more hearts here, but I preferred the little single one here, and I've got the single one with the bumblebees. So I just want to talk you through how I want to finish these off. I've stuck them all on card bases. They're all top folding cards. So I've got, I shouldn't really be showing this way around because it's supposed to be this way around. So these are both landscape cards. I haven't stuck the toppers down yet because I want to do 2 different things. On this one here, I want to keep it really, really plain. And at first I thought I put some foam pads on the back of this, but then the foam pads aren't as thick as this strip. So I decided to just cut from my scraps here, cut 2 pieces, one to sit on the top behind the topper, and one at the bottom. I even shaped these a little bit. So all I would do, you could, if you wanted to, cut another one of the ovals. I do actually have one left over, haven't I? Because I stamped it wrong. If I find that, actually, I could use that one. It might be in my paper bin already. I think I will do that, actually. And then I can cut a width out of that and just glue this behind here. And for this one here, I will just use some foam pads. I've got these round ones. It doesn't really matter. And I will just stick this on here. I thought about whether the heart needed a frame, but I think if it's raised I think it'll be enough there. I'm struggling a little bit with this clean and simple theme. I sometimes find I need to add something, but I'm just containing myself at the moment, sorry, restraining myself at the moment, and try not to overdo it. So here, again, I'm going to use a piece of scrap. I have to cut that probably a little bit slimmer, or have to cut the corners off just to be on the same level as this one here, and then I can glue this on here. I think that will be fine. And with this one, I have been playing around a little bit. I have stuck the sentiment strip down here as planned, but I find this is a bit too boring. It's not enough for me. I thought about adding some red hearts. I cut this again and embossed this again because I started colouring them in. I didn't like that. So what I've done is I have cut a circle die in a similar red to this colour here that I thought would be nice to just have a backdrop. And I think this makes it so much more interesting, and I think it's still clean and simple, but this looks so much nicer. So I will quickly finish these cards off camera as I suggested, and as I said, I'll try to not do anything else to them. One thing you could do if you wanted to is add some shimmer pen to the stamped images, maybe just to the hearts, but I think I will leave them as they are for the time being anyway. So here are my 4 finished cards. I'm really pleased with these. I think they're really nice and make good use of my white scraps and also of these lovely Lavinia stamps. So, and I already know where this one's going. I think it's next month. So yeah, I hope this could give you a nice idea how to use Lavinia stamps and your scraps to make some fairly clean and simple anniversary cards. And if you like these cards, you might want to give me a thumbs up, and I'd be really happy if you'd subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.